Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to need a third account, but I'm going to be talking about the new 3-player co-op dungeons that have been introduced to North America and Europe. So, these new 3-player co-op dungeons are significantly harder, as well as kind of giving players the full experience, so to speak, because the evolution material rush was underwhelming for the most part. And I have been able to play a modest amount since the release on Monday, especially during my streams that I did quite frequently throughout the day. And I did also do like pre-made matchmaking with certain players, including myself, as well as pairing up with random players. So I did kind of at least experience most of what 3-player has to offer in terms of the excitement, the joy, the frustration potentially, and actually very little of the trolling meme teams, which you may be seeing at the very top there. But they are possible, and this post article / video is mostly going to be summarizing my thoughts or initial thoughts that I have since 3-player has been introduced. So if you are wanting to look at a more detailed explanation in terms of like more strategy, you should check out my previous posts, which can be found in the article here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the random matchmaking system. So one of the best aspects of 3-player co-op is the ability to actually find partners through the app itself. Because in all honesty, going through like Discord, Facebook, while maybe being efficient, is not necessarily the best solution because it takes additional amounts of time, it takes effort, and the fact that we can now actually just do everything within Pad itself, or at least a bit more than before, is going to help at least facilitate 3-player co-op from taking off, because we have to make it easier and more enticing or appealing, otherwise people really wouldn't want to play it. So the nice thing about 3-player is that you do kind of have a soloistic team, in the sense that you don't have to pair up with people who have the exact same leader or activation requirements. It's a little bit more solo in that nature, as well as the fact that your two allies, while they may not necessarily be the greatest of players potentially, it still doesn't affect your gameplay as much as it would in 2-player co-op mode, because you have your own individual health bar as well as your own team. So the random matchmaking system obviously can be exciting because it kind of is a little thrilling. Like you get to see like all brand new teams, different play styles, people you normally would never get to play with. But it does also have the tendency to find people who like to make troll or meme oriented teams. At least for myself, I haven't actually really encountered someone like that. I may have found a person with like 60% skill bind resist in like my actual lobby, but I just quickly disconnected from that because I'm like, I don't want to play with that. But the main idea is like with random matchmaking, it is random. You don't know what you're going to get. There's no insurance policy. You could get someone that is going to screw you over completely. But I honestly feel that as the weeks go by, the chances of someone intentionally griefing or trying to screw someone over will go down, because it's kind of lost its luster or appeal. So basically, if you want to avoid all of this randomness, you can actually just join a pre-made lobby or make your own lobby. That way you can cancel and quit if you see people you don't actually want to play with. Another thing that I found very unusual was that there was no unlocking progression system. So pretty much all other content in Pad is somewhat gatekept behind certain dungeons. Basically, you have to clear various content beforehand in order to actually advance to the next difficulty. But for some reason, the 3-player co-op dungeons do not have that same idea of progression being unlocked. Everything's just given to you right away. And I feel that's honestly a bit of a problem, because the Cosmic Trinity has 3 different difficulty levels, and even the first one is actually quite challenging, but the highest difficulty one is incredibly hard, and very few players have somewhat of a hope or chance of clearing it unless you have a lot of coordination or you have a high-end team. So by having it simply opened up to any player with enough maximum stamina, which is probably the majority of the player base at this point in time, is, I think, a dangerous move, because it's going to really hinder your matchmaking potential, because you could potentially get paired up with someone who's very new to the game and just trying it out possibly. They're going to have a very bad time. You're probably going to have a bad time, and it honestly should have some gatekeeping progression. Like, obviously you can't put it behind, like, say, player rank, because there are alternate accounts, but have at least a way that we need to clear certain dungeons to at least unlock or see them. I feel like that would be a little bit nicer overall. Another thing I want to point out is that not everyone is a wizard. And no, I do not mean they have a magic wand that they wave around. I mean that not everyone is a wizard in terms of orb matching and puzzling combo skills. Because most people may play this game more casually, or maybe the 30-second timer kind of ruins their whole idea of planning moves out. But there may be a lot of factors going into it. But in all honesty, there are not that many incredible players out there. Like, not everyone can be Recco. So you have to obviously accept that fact that not everyone's going to play perfectly. We are humans. We are going to make errors. And at least for myself, one of the main appeals of Puzzle & Dragons back in the day was how it was a solo experience. We could play at our own pace, we could think at our own pace, we could basically just have all the time in the world. And this 3-player co-op does definitely shatter those expectations, because now it's very fast, very fierce, it's go, go, go. So some people obviously like that. Maybe it's a nice change of pace for others, but it can be a little bit of a stressful situation because you may not necessarily be able to count out how many combos you could make. Like if you're playing Anubis, it can be very challenging to plan out your board if you don't have that much time. So you have to obviously have a bit of understanding that not every player is going to be unbelievably amazing when matching. So in addition to that, not every player is also going to have perfect or ideal teams. As long as they're not intentionally griefing or using a bad team, like for instance, they're using, say, an Amaterasu team, and they have a Kusanagi Hime as a sub, like Kusanagi Hime is a better leader, they should be using that in theory in a hard dungeon. But the point of the matter is, if someone's actually trying it, to at least be a little bit more forgiving and understanding. Like, there are people who don't have the 3 Hakus for Dark Athena, so they may have only 1 and other subs, so obviously they're not going to perform as well, but as long as they try, I feel like that is the big takeaway message you need to have. Furthermore, you should also try and at least help out your partners, because 3-player co-op is not a PvP event. It's not a game of how fast you can kill your allies. It's a matter of trying to work together without any sort of communication. So this leads me to my next topic of cooperation. So even though each player does have their own team, their own health bar, and to a certain extent their own leader skill, you still have to have some sort of form of communication. Now, having just a nice button is kind of redundant. There should really be a few more options like stall or pass, but I guess we have to make do with what we have here. But depending on the type of team you are playing and also what floor you're on in the dungeon, you want to try and at least help out your teammates. So, for example, let's say you are playing a very tanky-oriented team like, say, Dark Metatron. You will tend to have 60 to 70,000 health, and this is going to allow you to tank basically any hit in the game, so you may not actually need to heal up every single turn. And because of that, you are a little more forgiving in terms of what you need to match on your individual turn. So when that is the case, you should try and help out your allies. Let's say someone is not full health, but you're playing a tank-oriented team, or you're playing a team that you can at least tank a reasonable hit that's coming up. Tank that hit and save those harbors for your ally. Let them get to heal up. Like, work as a team. Like, you obviously can't read each other's minds, but you can make it kind of clear. Like, you do have X amount of time to move orbs. If you try and like almost look like you're matching hearts in the corner, but leave them there and go somewhere else, it kind of indicates you should heal up to a certain extent. So you do want to try and at least help your allies out, as well as try and at least stall in problematic situations. So from my own experience thus far, problematic situations are leader swaps, say from Magedra, when one of your allies gets heavily bound because they only can clear binds on their turn, or if you need to stall for active skills, or if you need to juggle it for a certain player to tank a preemptive coming up or to deal with a certain floor. So one thing I want to stress is that at least in the Arena 3-player co-op, there are the 10 million defense pre-draws, and more often than not, there will be at least one person running a Guard Break Awakening. And Guard Break Awakening is an awakening that allows you to void all enemies' defense down to 0, provided you actually match all 5 colors. So if you have an ally who does have Guard Break Awakening, try and make it so it's their turn to fight the pre-draws, because they will be able to most easily and organically kill them without any active skill usage. Because in this 3-player co-op mode, active skills are very precious, because even though you do have 18 active skills across all teams, it's very hard to stall and at least charge up the inherits. So you want to at least try and use as few as possible. So if you see someone with Guard Break, try and make it so it's them who actually kills the pre-draws. And another thing I want to stress is that you don't have to go through a dungeon guns blazing. Through the 3-player co-op arena, we don't really want to rush the dungeon necessarily, because all of your inherits will never come up in time, and you may get someone killed because they need to stall for certain active skills. So if it's safe to do so, I would honestly just take the turn to like not kill the floor and stall. It kind of indicates to your allies as well that you are trying to wait, trying to get active skills up, and hopefully they follow suit. Because oftentimes I have seen players just try and blindly run through the arena dungeon because one of, say, ally A got bound heavily or had their leader swapped, and ally B just kept trying to kill every floor. I'm like, why are you doing this? We need to let them get unbound or let their leader be swapped back from Magedra. So I was trying to stall. The person who got bound and swapped is trying to stall, but the other player wasn't. So there's no need to rush through the dungeon so much. So I feel like that's another thing you need to try and be aware of. Like, yes, it is a little more solo-oriented, but you still need to have some form of cooperation with the people you're playing with if you don't know who they are. Another thing is that team diversity is valuable. So all teams in Puzzle & Dragons do have their own inherent pros and cons, and that's part of the game. Like, you have to know that certain teams will have limitations or setbacks. So if you have some sort of team diversity across the 3 different teams available, you're actually able to better counter more threats all at once. So, for example, Anubis is one of the more powerful 3-player co-op leaders because they have unrivaled damage potential, they can activate off most given boards, they have good healing potential, but their main weakness is they're fragile. They don't have any health multiplier, no 15% health badge means they're quite squishy and vulnerable to lots of attacks. So this can be problematic, and if you do have a team of 3 Anubises, it's going to be a game of like hot potato. You're going to be passing the turns around to have someone else get killed. By comparison, if we're, say, running something like Dark Metatron, they have a little bit more setting up required because they have to be below 80% health, but to compensate, they have 2.25 times health and recovery, so they're significantly tankier. They can basically withstand most attacks, and we should basically be utilizing that player as kind of like almost a meat shield in the sense that they can absorb these large hits without fear of dying. So that's why it can be very beneficial to have, say, a team of Anubis and a Dark Metatron, because the Anubis can obviously kill most given floors without active skill usage, and the Dark Metatron can tank all these problematic mechanics. So this is a very powerful thing to keep in mind if you're at least potentially playing with pre-made groups and lobbies, because you can have one person kind of be the more tanky, support, utility-oriented team, one person that does a lot more damage. So having different kinds of support and carries to a certain extent can at least help your overall progression in 3-player co-op dungeons. Another thing is that 30 seconds does not really feel like enough. At least, like I said before, if you played solo, this is going to be a nightmare. If you played co-op and got used to that 3-minute timer, this is going to be challenging as well. Because even for myself, I've had my 30-second timer cap out because I was planning out my board. I kind of tunneled a little bit. I was also possibly thinking what I need to do, what floors are coming up. You can't do any research in the dungeons because you don't have enough time to research the floors, especially in the Cosmic Trinity dungeons. So 30 seconds can feel a little constrictive, and it would be nice if there was an option if all players agreed to have, say, even 45 or 60 seconds to at least allow you time to think or plan out your boards, because it can be challenging, because again, you may not be able to count out enough combos, trace your path in your head mentally, so I feel like 30 seconds is a little rushed. I would also like to have at least an option to spectate. Like, for example, when you die in 3-player co-op, you are kicked out of the room, but technically the room could already support you, so why can't you just watch anyways? You should be at least given the option to watch your teammates' progression. I think that'd be something nice. So, I do have some sample gameplay videos. These are the 2 more noteworthy ones where I did the Absolute Annihilation in Cosmic Trinity, as well as Arena, like the arena with some random players, but I ended up getting people I had on my Twitch stream because I kind of gave them heads up when I'm queuing up, so they all try to queue up at the same time. So, in conclusion, 3-player co-op does bring a definite new layer of fun and excitement, while at least providing new mechanics and at least new types of teamwork into the Puzzle & Dragons world. It would be nice if they started pushing a bit more solo-oriented content, because it is kind of what the game was initially, but I feel at least 3-player co-op dungeons are a step in the right direction, because these dungeons are at least catered to 3-player co-op, unlike regular dungeons where they're a little too easy for co-op and a little too challenging for solo mode. So let me know what you think about 3-player co-op dungeons in the comments below. What has your experience been thus far? Have you seen lots of troll-oriented teams, or have you seen friendly people overall? Hopefully you all have a mantastic day, and happy puzzling!